Explosions, car chases, more explosions, American flags. Does that all sound like a Michael Bay movie to you? Well, that's because it pretty much is every Michael Bay movie. But today we're talking about his latest, Ambulance, and is it enjoyable? Well, I have an answer for you. But before we do that, I need to wipe the sweat off my brows. I mean, this movie had me stressed. My heart rate was all the way up. Whew. What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and today we're diving into all of my thoughts on Ambulance, the latest Michael Bay movie starring Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Eiza González, and Jake Gyllenhaal himself. It releases in theaters April 8th, and thank you so much to Universal Pictures for giving me the chance to watch this one early for review. Now, yes, I did see it in a movie theater, and yes, it was quite the ride. The movie is based on a 2005 Danish film, Ambulance, by Laurits Munch Petersen, and it's about two robbers who steal an ambulance after their heist goes wrong. Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and that is literally the entire plot. Now, before we get into all of my thoughts, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies just like this. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, tap on the bell, and hit the thumbs up button if you're a big fan of Michael Bay movies. And speaking of his movies, let me know down below in the comments which Michael Bay film is your favorite. I think the last movie I enjoyed of his, honestly, was Pain and Gain, but I'll tell you whether or not this one was yay or nay. Alrighty, you guys, so let's start off with the positives, and the first point today is going to be, if you're a fan of Michael Bay's filmmaking, it's turned up to an 11 here. Now, I don't know for you if that's good or bad, but for me, that's pretty much fine, because there are so many things about Michael Bay's filmmaking that I enjoy. He's known for these wide sweeping shots, these, yes, American flags in the background, but these really frantic moments of action that are just so wide. The scale is huge and there are a lot of explosions, so it does speak to the action movie fan in me. And yes, like I mentioned earlier, seeing this in a movie theater definitely added to the experience. But when it comes to the story itself, I'm really glad Michael Bay didn't attempt to make it bigger than it needed to be. Like we talked about earlier, this plot is very simple, it's straightforward, and it is basically taking place within 24 hours. So I enjoyed that the movie wasn't trying to be more complex or convoluted. It was really grounded and watered down, but it worked. And of course, when you step into a Michael Bay movie, there's one thing we have to talk about, and that's the action. But the way it was filmed here in Ambulance was so darn impressive. The stunt work here is exceptional. I mean, it just had my jaw on the ground. There were so many scenes and sequences that I kept thinking to myself, how are you pulling that off? But even outside of just stunts, there are some sequences that blew my mind. I'll just say this without spoiling anything: surgery in the back of an ambulance. You'll know why that moment is insane when you see it. And there are a lot of drone shots in this movie too, which added a unique angle that we otherwise wouldn't have gotten on screen. Alex Vanover is the drone operator for this film, and there's this impressive display of cinematography and filmmaking on hand, where we sometimes get these shots that scale up a building, flip upside down, come back to the ground level, and get right behind a getaway ambulance. And I thought it was just so wonderfully done. Now, was it used a little too much? We'll talk about that, but I do think that these angles are angles that I feel like I haven't seen before in an action film. And when it comes to the cinematography itself, even though it took some time to grow on me, there are a mix of wide-angle shots that showcase the scale of a scene, and when the pressure is amped up, we go tight in on Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Jake Gyllenhaal, and even Eiza González. So the cinematography definitely adds to the intensity without taking away from some of these really insane moments. And I keep saying the word insane, but that is probably the one word I'm going to use to describe this film. And speaking of our leads here, I loved our trio's chemistry. You don't come to a Michael Bay movie all the time expecting great performances, but these three actors are incredibly capable, and we're going to start here with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II because his performance was wow. He plays William Sharp, a former Marine who is married and a father of one. He's struggling to find money for his wife's surgery, so he turns to a heist job as a possible solution. Now, I sympathize with this character the most because by the end, and you'll know what I'm talking about, he sort of becomes the anti-hero in a way. Like, I know if you're on a heist and you're, robbing a bank, you're not a good guy, but I like the way that they wrote for this character, but more importantly, I like the way that Yahya acted in this role. He does an excellent job at working within the in-betweens. He delivered a low-key dramatic performance at times, but when scenes called for it, he rose to the occasion and delivered a supercharged performance. I mean, there were times where he was yelling and I was like, yes sir, But man, he is already one of my favorite actors, and this just cements the fact that he can act in any role at any time. And then you have Eiza González, who plays Cam, a paramedic with a troubled past of her own. She's ultra focused on her job, but at the expense of not really getting along with others. Now this, to me, is Eiza González's best performance since Baby Driver. I haven't seen her so locked in before, and yes, it is an action blockbuster, and some of the lines they throw at her are really generic, but she makes the best of them and then some. And there's even a specific scene in the beginning of the movie that really tugged at my heartstrings, but mainly due in part to her acting. And of course, rounding out our leading group, there's Jake Gyllenhaal, who plays Danny Sharp, Will's brother. Now this is a serial bank robber. He has been around the block, and I do like that they offer some background story for both Danny and Will, including their father. Now listen, when it comes to his acting, I've been a huge fan of Jake Gyllenhaal for many years, and I feel like he's at its best when he can just take control of these crazy roles, right? And well, this one's no exception. I love that he was so zany and unhinged in Ambulance. I mean, his character has the most ridiculous moments and lines of dialogue in this film, but he makes it work through and through. There were several scenes where, yes, I was like, oh my gosh, did this guy really say that or do this? But it works because it's Jake Gyllenhaal. You can't blink when Jake Gyllenhaal's on screen, because if you do, you might miss him doing something completely bonkers. I mean, the guy just adds to the dynamic attitude of this movie and is a big reason why my heart rate was rising from start to finish. And before we get on to the negatives, I just want to shout out one member of the supporting cast that really took my attention and made me laugh. It is Wale, yes, the hip-hop artist Wale. His character is probably the most human character of the entire movie, and yeah, he's really good here. Even though he's not on screen a lot, he does bring some laughs, and he is maybe the more relatable character here, because I can't put myself in any of these characters' shoes outside of Wale's. I'm serious, I would be cracking under pressure in some of these scenes, but listen, this is a totally different beast. Now guys, that's why the movie worked for me. Now let's talk about what doesn't work in Ambulance, and honestly, we gotta start with this. Michael Bay movies are usually hit and miss for me, but the lingering issue I always have with his movies are just them overstaying their welcome, and sadly, Ambulance's runtime hurts it by the third act. There are incredibly gripping moments towards the end of this film, don't get me wrong, but by the end credits, I feel like the pacing kind of hurt the movie more than helped it. It was sluggishly getting along the finish line, and even the ending itself was one that I didn't really disagree with. It's just how they got there that sort of lessened the impact for me. There were about 2 or 3 different times where I really thought it could have ended, or maybe even if they just cut out some moments, I wouldn't have checked my watch as often as I did. And the writing here was pretty shallow, guys. The script is not doing the actors many favors. It's really the actors making the best of the script. Yes, it's an action blockbuster movie, and I don't expect A+ writing, but the dialogue here was really generic and sometimes over the top without much reason. And most of the humor fell flat for me too. I am a guy who will laugh at a lot of things. Trust me, you can ask everyone around me. I laugh at pretty much everything. But in this movie, there were some jokes that were being made that just didn't work, and the film does try to infuse humor a lot without them really hitting for me. And even outside of the script itself, I think that while I was praising those drone shots and some of the wide sweeping angles in this movie that we get during highway chases and gunfights, these shots really made me groan sometimes. Not because they look bad, don't get me wrong, these shots were really impressive, but they were just so overdone. After a while, it felt more like a gimmick rather than something that was just naturally kind of fit into the movie. And the editing at times was a little too frantic as well. So the different shots, angles, extreme close-up, wide angles, sweeping shots, drones literally falling off of buildings, it looks like. It kind of got to be overwhelming, but not in the best way possible. Still, the moments will work for many, and I just began to notice them, and not in the best way after about an hour. But overall, you guys, did I enjoy Ambulance? And the answer is yes. I enjoyed my time with this movie. Okay, it's over 2 hours, fine, but I do think that the acting here is what elevates this action blockbuster to be more than just another Michael Bay movie, and it really is going to be something that probably lingers on your mind for the rest of the month. We get the best and worst of Michael Bay here, so you have to go in expecting that you're going to get moments that will make you almost want to cheer, and some other moments that make you scratch your head. Even though the film overindulges in itself at times, I think that Michael Bay knew what kind of movie he wanted to make, and he went for it 110% of the way. The actors were locked in, and I do think that there were some really impressive action sequences here that were maybe some of the best I've ever seen in cinema. I mean, gosh, that surgery scene, it My goodness, how did they even pull that off, man? So if you had to ask me, I would give Ambulance a strong 3.5 out of 5. It's that kind of movie for me, and it is worth seeing in the theaters. So if you go and buy a ticket opening weekend or afterwards, guys, you are not going to regret it. Just make sure you got popcorn or something to de-stress you. I was eating Oreos, and that didn't help. But yeah, I enjoyed my time with Ambulance. It's a winner, and I do think it's going to be one of these films that people are going to go to the theaters, walk out with a smile on their face, and think, yeah, I enjoyed my time. So there you have it, guys. That's my real review of Ambulance. Again, it hits theaters April 8th. And when you do see it, let me know down below in the comments what you think of this film. Did you enjoy it just as much as me? Are you in the middle, or did you even enjoy it more than I did? And don't forget to hit the big red button below and subscribe to the channel for more reviews just like this, guys. We got a busy April ahead, and guess what? We're getting right into May. It's right around the corner, guys. Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness is right there, guys, and I cannot wait for that movie. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And seriously, I need to relax. This movie, just thinking about it again, is getting me all antsy.